Good morning. My name is Reverend Kylie Renner, and on behalf of the entire One Spiritual Center community, thank you for joining us here on this chilly morning here in Albuquerque or online. It's so nice to have you here with us. I also am really grateful that it is supposed to get windy later, but right now we are in the calm before the storm. Hallelujah. Because last week was a little intense out here. So you all were brave, and thanks for joining us again. Thank you for bringing yourself into this space today. So I don't know if you've been having the same experience, but I've been thinking a lot about tradition this week and the things that we do just because we think we need to do them, and how that works, especially when we're not supposed to do those things, like gathering for Thanksgiving and all of those things, and really being present to what it means to question some of the things that we've gotten in ourselves into. So one of the things I've been doing recently is reading a book that someone left in one of our Airbnbs, and it's about it's called A Year of Living Danishly, and it's about the idea of exploring what it means that country is continuously on the top of all of the charts when people are studying where the happiest people in the world are. And it's trying to explore from the perspective of an immigrant what that is about. And one of the things they talk about a lot is about the relationship to tradition and how that gives us a sense of place and security. And so it's so interesting, in this time where it feels like everything is kind of unsettled, to have our traditions also in question. So I have to tell you, if you're feeling a little bit discombobulated, you're not alone. And I've been thinking a lot about this. How do we enter into this season that is going to be so different, at least outwardly, for so many of us? And how do we bring ourselves present to what we're actually being called to bring from the inside out into the world, and to not get so caught up in what we think it should look like. So thank you for bringing yourself here today. I still in the sense of how precious it is that we get to do this at all in this time of change. And so we're going to start with some prayer. If you're comfortable closing your eyes, we're just going to center into this beautiful day that never existed before and will never exist again. This holy and sacred moment. And I just know that within every single one of us, there's something that is asking for our attention, for us to bring our love and our peace and our wisdom to it, so that we may allow it the space to move and transform. And so I know in advance that whatever it is that needs our attention today is given it, and in the grace of something bigger than our idea of how it needs to show up. And that we bring ourselves fully present and allow the Spirit to fill us, so that we may be clearer, so that we may be a healing presence, so that we may enter this season of dark nights with light within. And so I just trust and I know that we're right where we're supposed to be today. And I know Spirit is present here, guiding us. And so I just let go into this, and I let it be. And so it is.
I see trees green, red roses too, and I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, and bright blessed day.
To prepare for our meditation this morning, I've chosen a poem that was new to me from Mary Oliver that I discovered this week. And it felt like it touched this sense of where we are all in this season. Dear Lord, I have swept and I have washed, but still nothing is as shining as it should be for you. Under the sink, for example, is an uproar of mice. It is the season of their many children. What shall I do? And under the eaves and through the walls, the squirrels have gnawed their ragged entrances. But it is the season when they need shelter. So what shall I do? And the raccoon limps into the kitchen and opens the cupboard while the dog snores and the cat hugs the pillow. What shall I do? Beautiful is the snow falling in the yard and the fox who is staring boldly up the path to the door. And still I believe you will come, Lord. You will. And when I speak to the fox, the sparrow, the lost dog, the shivering sea goose, I know I'm really speaking to you. Whenever I say, as I do all morning and all afternoon, come in, come in. And so we take that energy of inviting in. Come in, come in. We invite Spirit in and we allow the meditation to move us today.
This is a tune by Chick Corea. That last tune was by John Bartlett.
Ah, thank you. So as I shared a little bit earlier, I've been thinking a lot about the holiday season and all of the things that we're being asked to relook at. And what a great opportunity this year, especially, is to look at some of the things that we've bought into around the holidays and how we want to participate in that, especially since it's obvious that we're going to be going at a different pace and have different things expected of us this year. And so I started to actually think about the season of Advent, which is not something I spend a lot of time thinking about in the past. mostly because I wasn't raised in the Christian tradition, and so I also was raised in the middle of the ocean on an island. So the whole relationship that this season and Advent has to the darkness and the change of the seasons and what we're waiting for later on in December, the return of the light, it didn't make as much sense to me as it does now. And so I really started to think about the sense in which we're being asked during this season where we're obviously getting so drawn into the darkness so that we can get returned to the light later on, that we start to spend a lot of time thinking about what it is that we're bringing to this experience, what kind of light we want to be bringing, what we're holding in, as well as what we're being asked to let out. And I think about it in sometimes in terms of something that one of my ministerial professors back in school told me when we were talking about the materials that we would find, and one of the things that he encouraged of me as we were having a deeper conversation about how to bring to the surface whatever it is that needed to come out of us was this idea that to not hold back. And so what he would say is, you're going to find some beautiful, perfect story, and you're going to think, oh, I'm going to save that for the perfect time. And he said that there's never going to be the perfect time. Just bring it, right? Like bring it to the surface when it arrives. And I think about that a lot, not just from the perspective of how do you cultivate a meaningful expression that means something as a talk or a sermon, but more of the sense of like, what is it that when it arises, am I willing to let out into experience, or do I hold back thinking, well, I'll be more ready at some other point, or it'll be better, or I'll have more time to practice, or whatever that is, that we are being actually asked to let things out to the surface. So today's got a lot of stories, and the reason for that is when I realized that there's this sense in which it's almost as if this whole season is asking for us to really look at how we're participating in both letting things in and letting things out, and that circulation of energy and the enthusiasm that comes from just knowing that whatever we let go of or let out of us returns to us in energy and in form, that there's this way in which we start to participate in a deeper way of what is actually calling towards us. So the first story today is a story about a group of Buddhist monks that were gathered, and they were asked by their master to answer a question. And the question was, who can untie a bell hanging from the tiger's neck? And each was asked to meditate at length on the issue and come back to the master with some conclusions and with some suggestions. And so one of the monks' suggestion was that you should wait till the tiger is exhausted and asleep, and then silently and slowly and carefully untie it. And another said, well, you should feed the tiger until he's stuffed and content, and then it wouldn't think about eating you, but practice beforehand to curb your fears as you approach. And the old monk laughed at them and said, well, you're playing with danger. None of those methods are really safe. A tiger is a tiger, always unpredictable around humans and always wild. The tiger must be bound with strong cords before the bell can be untied from his neck. And so then another monk piped up and asked the older monk, well, who would tie the tiger up before trying to untie the bell? Like, who's going to do that step? And the older monk hadn't considered that small detail. And so they were all stumped. And this is finally when the master who had posed the question came back and they shared his solutions with him. And with each answer, he started to laugh louder, which disconcerted them. And he finally looked at them hard and said, "Who bound the tiger and tied the bell around its neck in the first place? Obviously, this is the person who knows how to untie the bell hanging from the tiger's neck." And so this seems like a strange story until you start to look at it from the perspective of how did we get where we are, right? Like how is it that we've gotten ourselves tied with a bell around our neck? How is it that we're going to untie that? And it's clear that when we start to look at what we've let in and what we're being asked to let go of, that we are the ones at the center of that story. Right? We're the ones that have tied the bell around our own necks, and we're the ones that are being asked to free ourselves from that at the same time. And in this deeper sense in which we're being called to participate in this whole deepening practice that's happening as we enter into a sense of what actually is required of us, not what we think needs to happen. And I started to think about all of the sources of suffering that we experience, and sensing so deeply that most of them come from us being unwilling to actually let ourselves fully get into whatever it is that we're experiencing. It's like our source of suffering comes from holding back and holding ourselves back and holding back our willingness to participate. And we just keep on causing ourselves suffering by being unwilling to participate fully, because we have all kinds of stories about ourselves. We have stories about how we're broken, about how we don't have what it takes, about how we're limited by this situation or that situation, or like right now with how we're limited because we can't do the way we think we want to because of COVID or because of any other kind of restriction. And that's where it gets really interesting to start to look at what it is we're holding in and what we're letting go of, especially when we can't do it the way we think we should or the way we've done it in the past. Because then we get to get really clear about how it is that we're actually being called to participate. Because obviously, I mean, some of those things are important, and some of them we will get to participate in again. But some of the ways in which we've been letting things in, or things that we've let in, really don't need to be there anymore. But we have to figure out a way of allowing ourselves to participate fully, even in the face of what feels like obstacles. And this is one of the interesting things about the spiritual path, is that we find those obstacles, whether they're some external thing or an internal thing that we discover, that we discover deeper ways to participate when we actually are willing to encounter them. When we don't hide from them, when we're willing to participate fully. So I think about it sometimes in terms of the stories we tell about why we can't. Like, why is it that we hold on to certain things, and how about why do we only bring out the nice dishes on holidays? I don't have nice dishes, but I know that is something that happens, right? Like, why is it that we only do certain things at certain times, instead of how is it that I want to truly participate in the fullness of bringing all of my heart, all of my love, all of my peace, all of the time? And I think sometimes that we think that if we do that, we're going to get depleted. And on certain levels, if we're not conscious, that there is some danger there, but there is also, if we're willing to participate in what's actually called out of us, that there's ways to participate wholeheartedly and with enthusiasm, even in the things where it feels like we're being restricted in some way. And so there's this great story about a orchestra conductor. His name was Eugene Ormandy, and he was quite well known in his time, and he was conducting the Philadelphia Orchestra, and he was conducting so vigorously that he actually threw his shoulder out while he was conducting. He dislocated his entire arm. And the story is touching in the way that it is an example of like, how is it that we want to put ourselves so fully immersed in what we're doing that we get engaged in it wholly, that we let that out. And so the story goes that it was actually, he was conducting Brahms at the time, and one of the in that particular part of the orchestra, Brahms has written as loud as possible, and then only a few bars later he writes louder still. And I think that this is one of the things about deepening in the spiritual path, is that we get to that place where we think we're giving as much as is required, like we're given our whole hearts to something, and because of an obstacle, because of a challenge, because of something that starts to feel like it's standing in the way, we realize that we're being asked to give more. Like from that place, from that inner light place, not from some sort of like external idea of ourselves, but from this inner place that we're being asked to actually give from this deeper place, and that there's more there. And that's the beauty of deepening on this spiritual path, is that we realize that every time we go deeper, there's more available to us. There's more love for us to give and participate in. There's more joy. And as I've been speaking to the last few weeks, there's also more sadness and more grief. And so we get to create these containers in which we are able to give and receive fully and participate in this. And so as we enter into this time where we start to see the light getting shorter very quickly, have you been noticing that? Gets dark earlier and earlier, right, this time of year, until it gets the darkest it's going to be. The night gets the longest it's going to be, and then the light returns. So as we prepare for the light to return, how beautiful it is, though, to start to participate and realize that we're being asked to really look at how we're letting things in and what we're not letting in. And maybe that's a conscious thing, but if it's not a conscious thing, what is it that we could be letting in if we were really letting Spirit have its way with us? If we were really willing to participate fully? And the sense in which we start to really become available to this idea that there's nothing in us that's being asked to hold back. Like that we're being asked, especially in this time where it feels like everything that is impermanent is being looked at more clearly, to actually like get really open about what it is that we want to be given out into the world. So there's a meme going around that says, tell your friends you love them, like make it ridiculous, like say it so much it becomes ridiculous. And I think that there's something really beautiful about realizing like we're being asked to do that right now, right? Like not just because it might be the last time we get to see each other's faces or participate in something together, but like that we actually are being asked to let that love out of us and not hold it back for special occasions, not to bring it out just on holidays like we may have in the past, but to actually make it a way of life and something we participate in more fully. So there's this beautiful story about a master violin maker who was choosing a disciple to take his place. And so he had painstakingly shown each of his students every aspect of building a violin, from choosing the woods and aging them for many years, to carving and shaping and finally getting them tuned. And there was this one young woman amongst his students who was superb at almost every aspect of the craft. But there was one skill that she lacked, and it was probably the most important. And this was that she couldn't seem to be able to determine which tree would hold the best wood for the violin. And so again and again, this master violin maker had taken her out to the trees, and he took her during the spring thaws and the strong winds and the hot summers. And especially the shift between the seasons, where in the autumn, where the leaves had dropped to the harshness of winter, and then to the hard winters and the brutal and long periods of cold and ice that had collected in the forest, breaking limbs and the furious winds and the blowing snow. And he kept taking her through all of these seasons to go back time and time again and stand in the barren forests and ask which trees hold the wood of the violin. And so invariably, she would pick ones that didn't look like they were taking a beating, trees that were protected by others from the worst of the weather, or she would choose trees for their graceful appearance during the storms. But he knew the wood of the trees she chose would not produce the violins of the quality they were looking for. And so he began to despair at teaching her this most crucial part. And so he took her to the same forest one more time in a windstorm and stood facing the trees, and he asked her to talk to the trees. And she felt sorry for the battered ones, those that were taking the initial force, the ones that formed a weather break for the trees behind. And so as she spoke of her sorrow of how they cracked and bent and even split in the blizzard, he realized why she was making her choices. And so he said, look at them. Listen to the limbs in the wind. Close your eyes and know they are the ones being tuned. And in that moment, she knew and understood and opened her eyes to see that those standing in the forefront, those that stood and faced the elements, were already making music. Having absorbed all of the stresses of the elements from their wood, she would be able to make instruments of magnificent sound. And I love the energy of this story, this energy of realizing that we're all being tuned by these experiences that we're having, and that we're being asked to allow them to let music out of us, to let our wisdom out, and not to start to think that we're broken and not the ones that we've been waiting for, that somehow we're holding back our healing power or our presence or our vision because we think that we're the ones that have been beat up by the storm, instead of realizing that whatever it is that has caused us to experience deepening and awareness is actually that which has tuned us and created us in this capacity to then be actually more of a healing agent of change, actually more capable of bringing that. And that we're being asked to realize that we are actually asked not to hold back in that, to bring it forward, to bring that love and that capacity to care forward in a more powerful way. So I'm just going to ask us all to get silly about our love, like to get silly about it, sharing how grateful we are to be able to be alive and present and experience that givingness of spirit that just allows us to participate in this season, especially in this preparation, in a way that doesn't keep holding us back for some future time, for some future idea of ourselves, but instead allows us to be fully present here and letting things out, but also really truly letting things in. And so whether that is the darkness or, man, that magnificent moon last night, just letting in what the darkness allows us to see that we couldn't see in the light. And I'm just welcoming this sense that there's no reason to wait for some special occasion, that the special occasion it's Sunday in the end of November. What a beautiful time to give all the love that we have and receive all the love that is available. You're like, why not? So I'm going to ask the band to come on up as we open to prayer, and we're going to sing into our prayer. And as we prepare the way for that, I'm going to invite you to think maybe there's some place in your life where you've been holding back because you think you're not ready, because the time doesn't seem quite right yet because something outside of you has said it's not what it's supposed to look like. And we're going to see if handing this over to prayer can create more room for whatever that is that needs to be brought in and whatever it is that needs to be let go of.
A prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, sets us free.
And so as we once again breathe into this day that never existed before and will never exist again, I recognize today our prayer of love is a prayer of being willing to participate fully in this thing called life, to let spirit in as well as out of us, and to participate in that expression of light and love that can come through our willingness to not hold back, to actually recognize that whatever is pulling us will support us and provide everything we need along the way. And so we allow ourselves to fully immerse ourselves in the love that is calling us, and we give it freely and we receive it openly, and we participate in the preparation for the return of the light by being willing to learn from the darkness. To be willing to fully embrace that which is calling us deeper, that which is calling us to break free from the bell that we are being asked to remove from around our own necks. And I just know that there is nothing and no reason not to share abundantly and creatively and powerfully, that all of that energy that we give out returns to us magnified and multiplied. And so I welcome all of that givingness, all of that joy, all of that enthusiasm of being just so filled up from inside that we cannot help but overflow, and then create space to receive again. And I just know that it is good, and I'm grateful for it. And so I know I can let it be. And so it is.
Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us,
Thank you guys. So fun listening to you guys play new stuff together. So, thank you for being here today. Thank you for joining us as we continue to figure out how to stay warm and and be able to do church safely. And thank you for helping us do that. We have, what am I trying to say? I have no idea. So, we're so grateful for your continued love and support, whether you're watching online or here in person. We have baskets in the trees if you'd like to make a contribution. That way, we had some fun last week with the wind. We had some things blow, which was great. I believe all found, but yes, that was an interesting challenge I wasn't expecting. So there's baskets in the trees, and there's also a way to give online. OneSpiritualCenter.org has information about that, and there's also a text to give number there as well. And we really appreciate your support so that we can continue to do what we do here. And I also want to thank everyone for their flexibility as we're just trying to figure out how to keep people safe with our volunteer opportunities. So I'm going to just say until our numbers start to go down a bit, we're going to pause our getting together to volunteer just until it feels safer. Because if you don't know already, most of the people who come volunteer with us are our elders, and I really don't want to feel responsible for anyone possibly getting sick while doing anything to try and be of service to our community. It doesn't make sense right now. So I'll let you know when we've recommitted to those. Hopefully our numbers here in New Mexico start to not look so scary, and please help me just join in prayer for all of the people who are seeking to make choices and alleviate suffering right now, because there's obviously a call for us to be participating in this world in a different way. Which we remember that we belong to one another and that our choices have impact on each other's health and all of those things. So just keeping on praying that we find our way through this. So thank you. And let's see. I believe that those are my announcements for today. And so let us sing.
One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Let's give thanks to the Lord and we can feel alright. People get ready, there's a train coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is feel that diesel humming. Don't need no tickets, you just thank the Lord. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Let's give thanks to the Lord and we can feel alright. People get ready for the train to Jordan, picking up passengers from coast to coast. Faith is the key, open the doors and board 'em. There's room for all that love the most. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. Let's give thanks to the Lord, and we can feel alright. Let's get together and feel alright.
And we have one last blessing to sing to one another.
Go forth and walk in beauty, and know that we are one. Ready? One. I want 2, 3, 4. It's a perfect ending.